Hello everyone, Blackwell here, back with another Flesh and Blood video. Today I'm going to be going over how to play Oscilia Constella Intelligence in Classic Constructed. I'm going to be going through three hands. One is a typical turn-to-turn hand you might get with Oscilio, just to demonstrate some basic mechanics and how the damage will scale with his, typical cards. I'm going to also go through two combo hands and how to execute them. If you are an experienced Oscilio player, this video may not be for you. This is intended at players that are newer to Flesh and Blood or players that are interested in playing Oscilio and don't know a lot of his mechanics, tips, and tricks yet. So we're going to start off with a 3-card hand here. This is more representative of what you're going to be doing with Oscilio on a turn-to-turn basis. I'm going with 3 cards instead of 4 cards to represent situations where maybe you have a card that isn't relevant to your hand, maybe you get disrupted, things like that. Maybe you have a card you're going to arsenal for a future turn. So, to recap, Volzar, the Lightning Rod, the weapon you typically use with Oscilio, reads, if you control an aura permanent with sigil in its name, this costs a resource less to activate, so typically it'll be free if you have a sigil, and then as an instant, you can activate it to amp X, where X is the number of lightning cards you've played this turn. So as I'm going through these hands, I'm going to track on Volzar how much amp we're getting. This is something you're going to want to do in your in-person games, even if you don't have an activation of Volzar, just so that you're properly representing it. If you don't track this, then your opponent may know that you don't have an arcane spell in hand. So we're going to start the turn off by playing Flittering Charge. If you play an instant card, this will get go again. So we've gotten 1 lightning card for Volzar. Then we'll play as an instant Sigil of Brilliance. This will be another lightning card for Volzar, and we'll give Flittering Charge go again. Then we will activate Volzar for free because we have a sigil. Then we'll play a Mind Warp for 4. So this hand ends up being 8 damage presented for 3 cards, which is not great if you're familiar with how typical hand values go in Flesh and Blood. Typically you'd want to look for at least 9, and then more than that would be a really good competitive hand. However, there's 2 things to consider here. One is that Sigil of Brilliance or any of the other sigils will provide you value on a future turn, so they aren't necessarily one card's worth on this turn, because in Sigil of Brilliance's example, it's closer to a 2-card 8 because this will replace itself on a future turn. The other thing to consider is that Mind Warp has its surge effect, so you're demanding a card out of your opponent to Arcane Barrier at least 2 of this effect, and if they don't, then you'll get the surge effect, which will rip a card out of their hand anyway. So that's just a pretty basic overview of how an Oscilio turn might go. Next, we're going to get into one of the combo hands. So a lot of your games as Oscilio will be won off the back of a combo turn. Oftentimes, these combo turns will be using one or both of these equipment, Lightning Greaves and Aether Bindings of the Third Age. For the purposes of this first combo hand, we're just going to be looking at Lightning Greaves. When we get into the second one, we'll go over Aether Bindings. So Lightning Greaves reads, as an instant, you can destroy this by paying 1 resource. To give instant cards this turn go again. If you aren't familiar with how this works, because instant cards don't themselves cost an action to play, if you give them go again, they will net 1 action point. So as I'm going through this hand, I'm both going to now track the amount of amp we have with Volzar, as well as the number of action points we have available on Oscilio. So to start this turn, we're going to have 1 action point. I also forgot to bring out one other piece of equipment here. Typically, you're going to play a chest piece that gives you a resource. The most common is Fiendel's Spring Tunic. If you don't have a copy of Fiendel's Spring Tunic, you can play Blossom of Spring. It's almost as good as Fiendel's Spring Tunic in Oscilio, and I've even seen some lists that prefer to run this. So we're going to start this turn off by activating Fiendel's Spring Tunic, and then activating Lightning Greaves. So we'll be using the resource from Spring Tunic to activate Lightning Greaves. The hand we have is Gone in a Flash, Electrostatic Discharge, Sigil of Lightning, and Etchings of Aether. Now, Gone in a Flash, if you aren't familiar, lets you return it to your hand whenever you play an instant card. If you wait to do this until resolution, you can deal the damage and then return this. So, let's start off by playing Gone in a Flash. So we'll bring us down to no action points, and will be our first lightning card for Volzar. Then we're going to move to resolution. We're going to play Electrostatic Discharge as an instant. This is a lightning card, so this will be another amp for Volzar. And because this is an instant, gaining Go Again from Lightning Greaves will go up to 1 action point again on Oscilio. Then on resolution, we'll return Gone in a Flash to hand. We're going to play Gone in a Flash again, this time for 7 because of Electrostatic Discharge. This is our third lightning card for Volzar, and this will use our action point. Then we're going to play Sigil of Lightning, going up to 4 lightning cards, gaining us an action point again, returning Gone in a Flash to hand. Then we will activate Volzar for free, because we have a Sigil, and then use our action point to play Etchings of Arcana. This is 3 base, amping 4. This will be coming in for 7, threatening a Surge. Now, because most heroes usually only play 3 Arcane Barrier at most, you're almost guaranteed to get the Surge effect here. Something important to remember is that if you get the Surge effect off on Etchings of Arcana, which, if you aren't familiar with the card, it will return an aura with Sigil in its name from your graveyard to your hand. Because the Sigils are instants, when you play them, you will then go back to an action point, allowing you to play the Gone in a Flash yet again. This could be relevant if your opponent is low on life, and this would threaten the last few points of damage you need. So with this hand, we threatened 4 on the initial attack, 7 on the second attack, so up to 11, and then another 7 on Etchings of Arcana. So that's 18 damage off of a 4-card hand, which isn't the craziest thing you've seen in Flesh and Blood. However, it's important to remember that we ended this turn, ignoring any potential surge here on Etchings of Arcana. We ended this turn with a Sigil of Lightning on board, which will give Go Again to the next one, and Gone in a Flash in our hand, which we can then arsenal and set up for next turn. So it ends up being closer to an 18 for 3, or depending on how you value the Sigil, even 2. If we do get the Surge effect off here and then return something like a Sigil of Brilliance, it gets even better. Alright, so next up we're going to get into a Blast to Oblivion combo turn. Now, these have the potential to scale even crazier than the Gone in a Flash hands. However, they do require a much more specific set of cards. What I showed you with Gone in a Flash was a pretty tame combo turn, only 4 cards. We didn't assume any setup besides a counter on Spring Tunic. It can still scale more if you have something that can draw a card, such as like a Channel Lightning Valley, or a card in Arsenal to help extend this chain further. However, Gone in a Flash hands can typically just be enabled by Gone in a Flash, any arcane spell, and then any number of instants. With Blast to Oblivion, you do specifically need Blast to Oblivion, Electromagnetic Somersault, and then any of the Sigils. If you're doing this on a Lightning Greaves turn, you want this to be Sigil of Brilliance. You can potentially pull off some chains that don't involve Lightning Greaves, but do involve a Sigil of Lightning or Sigil of Conductivity. In those cases, you will need to have a way to give the first Blast to Oblivion you play that turn Go Again, whether that be with something like a Embodiment of Lightning on the board that would give it Go Again, or you could use a Blink to go back to an action point. So, similar to the previous hand, we're going to start this turn off by assuming we'll activate Tunic to gain a resource, to then activate Lightning Greaves. We are also going to destroy Aether Bindings of the Third Age. Aether Bindings reads until end of turn, whenever an aura permanent you control with Sigil in its name leaves the arena, amp 1. So now we're going to be tracking one more piece here with the amount of amp we're getting off Aether Bindings of the Third Age. So after we've activated these, we have 1 action point on Oscilio. We're going to start off by playing Sigil of Brilliance. This will be our first lightning card for Volzar, and will push us up to 2 action points because this gets Go Again from the Lightning Greaves. Now, it's important when you're doing these hands that you need to have the sigil in play before you play the Blast to Oblivion in order to get the return effect from Blast to Oblivion. If you're not familiar with Blast to Oblivion, it reads when this attacks, the next time you play an instant card this chain link, you may return target aura permanent with cost 1 or less, or target aura token to its owner's hand. So the next thing we're going to do is play the Blast to Oblivion. This is our second lightning card. This will bring us down to 1 action point. Then we're going to play Electromagnetic Somersault. This will bring us up to 2 action points because it gets go again. This is our third lightning card. When we play this, we will trigger Blast to Oblivion to return Sigil of Brilliance to our hand. When Sigil of Brilliance leaves the arena, we'll draw a card. For purposes of this example, I've predetermined what cards we're going to draw. I've gone with some fairly tame cards that keep the chain going but aren't the most insane things you could draw. So in this case, we're drawing High Voltage. Alright, so then when we would go to Resolution, we return Blast to Oblivion to hand. Electromagnetic Somersault is gone. Then we're going to replay the Sigil of Brilliance. This will put us up to 3 action points and is our 4th lightning card played. I'm sorry, I completely missed the Aether Bindings of the Third Age. So when the initial Sigil of Brilliance left the field, we would be amping 1 for Aether Bindings of the Third Age. Alright, so now we've replayed the Sigil of Brilliance. That's our 4th lightning for the turn. That's bringing us up to 3 action points. Then we're going to play the Blast to Oblivion again. 5th lightning card, going down to 2 action points. Then we'll play the High Voltage. It itself will amp 1, so we'll keep this in the arena to demonstrate that. This is now our 6th lightning card played, bringing us back up to 3 action points. We will trigger Blast to Oblivion, return Sigil of Brilliance to hand. That will trigger Sigil of Brilliance to draw a card. In this instance, I've set it to be Lightning Surge. That will also get us another amp for Aether Bindings of the Third Age. Then we have run out of our Blast to Oblivion usages, unfortunately. One of the ways we could have made this combo turn a little more insane is if I had made it so that we drew another Electromagnetic Somersault instead of High Voltage. We're going to replay the Sigil of Brilliance, going up to now 4 action points. This is our 7th lightning card. We're going to play Lightning Surge as our 8th lightning card, now going down to 3 action points. Then we will activate Volzar for free because we have Sigil of Brilliance, then play Etchings of Arcana. So in this instance, this is 3 base, plus 2 for Aether Bindings of the Third Age, up to 5, plus 8 for Volzar, up to 13, plus 1 more for High Voltage, up to 14. So my dice don't even go that high, so we'll have to do 12 plus 2. So we're threatening 14 arcane damage here. In total this turn, we threatened 14 here, 4 from the Lightning Surge up to 18, and then 2 instances of 4 with the Blast to Oblivions. So that'll put us up to 26 damage in this turn, 14 of which were arcane damage. And this is still also with a Sigil of Brilliance to draw us a card at the start of the next turn, and this was all with only a 4-card hand, not even a 5-card hand or any other kind of setup. Now granted, this does need a very specific hand to pull off, like I mentioned before. You need Blast to Oblivion, Electromagnetic Somersault, Sigil of Brilliance, and then any arcane spell. But hopefully this demonstrates the power of what you can do with Oscilio when you hit these hands, and can teach you how to execute them. Anyway, thank you for watching, and hope you enjoyed.